The Korean War in South Korean Hangul, Hanja, Hanguk Jeonjaeng. Korean War in North Korean Chosån'gŭl, Hanja, Mr. Choguk haebang, Fatherland Liberation War. The 25th of June 1950, the 27th of July 1953, 36B-38 was a war between North Korea with the support of China and the Soviet Union and South Korea with the principal support of the United States. The war began on the 25th of June 1950, when North Korea invaded South Korea 39-40 following a series of clashes along the border 41-40 to the United Nations, with the United States as the principal force, came to the aid of South Korea. China came to the aid of North Korea, and the Soviet Union also gave some assistance to the North. Korea was ruled by Imperial Japan from 1910 until the closing days of World War II. In August 1945, the Soviet Union declared war on Imperial Japan, as a result of an agreement with the United States, and liberated Korea north of the 38th parallel. US forces subsequently moved into the south. By 1948, as a product of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, Korea was split into two regions, with separate governments. Both claimed to be the legitimate government of all of Korea, and neither accepted the border as permanent. The conflict escalated into open warfare when North Korean forces supported by the Soviet Union and China moved into the south on the 25th of June 1950. 43 on the 27th of June, the United Nations Security Council authorized the formation and dispatch of UN forces to Korea, to repel what was recognized as a North Korean invasion. 44. 21 countries of the United Nations eventually contributed to the UN force, with the United States providing 88% of the UN's military personnel. After the first 2 months of war, South Korean and US forces rapidly dispatched to Korea were on the point of defeat, forced back to a small area in the south, known as the Pusan Perimeter. In September 1950, an amphibious UN counteroffensive was launched at Incheon, and cut off many North Korean troops. Those who escaped envelopment and capture were forced back north. UN forces rapidly approached the Yalu River, the border with China, but in October 1950, mass Chinese forces crossed the Yalu, and entered the war. 43 The surprise Chinese intervention triggered a retreat of UN forces which continued until mid-1951. After these reversals of fortune, which saw Seoul change hands 4 times, the last 2 years of fighting became a war of attrition, with the front line close to the 38th parallel. The war in the air, however, was never a stalemate. North Korea was subject to a massive bombing campaign. Jet fighters confronted each other in air-to-air combat for the first time in history, and Soviet pilots covertly flew in defense of their communist allies. The fighting ended on the 27th of July 1953, when an armistice was signed. The agreement created the Korean Demilitarized Zone, to separate North and South Korea, and allowed the return of prisoners. However, no peace treaty has been signed, and according to some sources the two Koreas are technically still at war. 45, 46. As a war undeclared by all participants, the conflict helped bring the term police action into common use. It also led to the permanent alteration of the balance of power within the United Nations, where Resolution 377 passed in 1950 to allow bypassing of the Security Council, if that body could not reach an agreement, led to the General Assembly displacing the Security Council as the primary organ of the UN.